Return of the Mount Hua Sect, Chapter 156. Now let's go catch the Wudang bastards.
We will join too. What are you doing, beggars?
Hongdae yelled. But before they could even get ready, the disciples of Mount Hua rushed in to face the enemies.
Damn it.
They lost their chance. This was quite disgraceful for Hongdae.
Don't those brats have any fear in them?
Why were the Beggars' Union even part of the 9 great sects? Honestly, the martial arts of the Beggars' Union lagged behind the other sects by a good margin. If they were judged for the number of masters or the quality of literacy they had, it wasn't right for the Beggars' Union to be in the 9 great sects' one union. Yet, there was a reason why they were put in that position: the power of information. Yes, it was an additional element. It was the reason why people didn't hesitate to acknowledge the power of the Beggars' Union, because the information they had was second to none when compared to the other sects. Even if their strength was lacking, they had the information to fight right. Whenever a crisis struck or whenever people were called out, the Beggars' Union was always at the forefront with the most accurate information. And that was enough for the Beggars' Union to be proud of their sect. Some people call them beggars with nothing to do, and that they are unaware of the preciousness of life, but being able to go against injustice was the pride of the Beggars' Union. But now, the people whom Hongdae was looking at were even more fearless than the Beggars' Union. Even if he considered that Mount Hua's divine dragon had always been like this. He was weird from the start, but the disciples of Mount Hua who were with him seemed quite sane. They had eyes and they could see the power of the opponent. And yet, without hesitating, they were rushing in to fight them. Furthermore,
these young ones don't know fear.
The axe of Makwi was swung with a terrifying force.
Swish!
But Baekchun, who was facing him, was able to dodge the axe with amazing speed by just stepping back.
It is only natural to respect the elders, Baekchun said with a smirk.
But you don't seem to be someone who acts his age, so there is no need for me to respect you.
You fucking bastard!
Makwi ran towards Baekchun. However, Baekchun narrowly avoided the attack again and thrust his sword towards the man. Hongdae, who saw it, admired his movement.
Unlike his appearance, he is quite proficient at riling people up.
If Chongmyung's words were like being hit with a huge club, then Baekchun's words were like being pierced with a dagger with a smile. Thanks to that, the anger Makwi had was soaring higher and higher as he ran for Baekchun, and Baekchun was dealing with him splendidly. Of course, if this was a head-on fight, Baekchun wouldn't have been able to compete with the giant. However, Baekchun was using his speed and accuracy to create a fight that he wouldn't lose. And considering the fact that he was young, this was amazing. It wasn't just Baekchun. Jogul's sword went straight for Sonmyeong. Like his title, Shandong's quick sword, Sonmyeong's sword was moving at an amazing speed, but no matter how fast he was, Jogul's speed wasn't lacking at all compared to him. And,
Gul, don't get excited!
Yoonjung was supporting him. Whenever Sonmyeong would aim for a gap in Jogul, Yoonjung would help him and defend. Yoonjung's sword was slow, but that didn't mean he lacked skill. Unlike Jogul, Yoonjung's sword was slow, yet serious, and it could be said that it held the spirit of Mount Hua. The quick and light sword of Jogul and the heavy and serious sword of Yoonjung were handling Sonmyeong. And Sonmyeong, who was facing the two, was in trouble.
You sneaky bastards!
Considering their ages, the two couldn't have been practicing the sword for many years, but they were both working together so perfectly as if they had been together for decades. They were each looking out for the gaps in the other's movements, and were subsequently defending and advancing together.
Just where did such people come from?
Sonmyeong stepped back and glanced to his side. It was disgraceful to be pushed by two young men, but he didn't show such an expression on his face. It was the blue sword scholar, No-Guang, who was facing real suffering. Damn it! No-Guang was the one who was facing real disgrace since he was being cornered by a girl from Mount Hua. No matter how different their skills were, No-Guang wasn't the kind of swordsman to be pushed back by a woman. But the fact of what was happening now couldn't be denied. The female disciple of Mount Hua who was facing him was constantly pushing him back with the most elegant sword. Looking at her sword's movements, even Sonmyoung couldn't predict the next spot it would target. He felt cold sweat dripping down his back as he watched her movements. When did Mount Hua get so strong? Everyone knew that Mount Hua was once a strong sect, but that was possible because the elders of the sect had the skill and sufficient martial arts to relay to their disciples. They had never heard of young disciples being this strong. Furthermore, it felt like they were all going to lose. Kang! Sonmyoung clenched his teeth as he pushed his sword towards Yunjong's waist. You were careless, you little bastard. It was then. Kang! The sword that almost cut down Yunjong bounced back, and along with that came the most irritating voice one could hear. What? And Yunjong's shoulders started trembling. I clearly said that, huh? Don't act carelessly. You talked so much before. How can you not even know how to defend? Do your ears not work? This is why I said I will do this alone. Alone. Shit. You keep interfering and annoying me. My life. This bastard is nagging. Yunjong was upset, but he said nothing, because the one yelling at him was Chongmyoung. And now he was doing crazy things like supporting the other disciples of Mount Hua, despite he himself being in a fight against 6 people alone. Even if he yelled with 10 mouths, Yunjong couldn't say anything. Chongmyoung was also helping Yu Yisol and Baekchun at the same time. Concentrate! Concentrate, please! And then maybe, if you do that, someone will applaud you for it, okay? I'd rather freeze to death. Yunjong glanced at Chongmyoung's back. Strange. Even though the words came out like he was irritated, the voice felt strange. Is he in a good mood? What a crazy thought that was. Did it make sense to feel good in a life or death situation? Don't keep thinking and move! That ghost-like bastard. But nothing changed for Chongmyoung. Yunjong threw away all the distractions from his mind and focused on Sonmyoung. He could think about it later. For now, he had to focus on taking down this man. Hong Dae-Guang couldn't help but feel a bit shocked as he looked at the disciples of Mount Hua pushing back their enemies into a corner. Branch leader, where do we go? No, do I have to tell you that? Hong Dae-Guang bit his lip and shouted, You! Hit them where you can! Bite their ankles if you have to! Yes! Saying that, Hong Dae-Guang jumped into the air and went for the enemies that Chongmyoung was dealing with. Hong Dae-Guang charged forward, took out a club, and began to smash the enemies. And then came the voice. Now even the beggars are interfering? Seriously? Hong Dae-Guang pretended to not hear it. As the Beggars Union people joined, the ones trying to push Chongmyoung began to retreat. Except one. Only one person didn't care about that and kept glaring at Chongmyoung. Chongmyoung-san. From the start till the end, he kept looking at Chongmyoung. It wasn't known what the others were thinking. If Chongmyoung couldn't be defeated, all the other fights would be meaningless. In order to survive here, that one monster had to be defeated. Chongmyoung also seemed to be interested in him. Well, look at this. That energy from him wasn't like it usually was. As if there was only Chongmyoung here, all the senses of Chongmyoung-san were directed at him. Seeing that, Chongmyoung smiled without realizing it. That one is the real deal. Even Wudang's Mujin had ignored Chongmyung, but this man was now treating him as an equal opponent. Chongmyung-san raised his sword and aimed at Chongmyung. Chongmyung-san. Chongmyung. There was no need for more words. All that was left to do was fight. Chongmyung-san's body soared in an instant and went for the opponent. At the same time, a slash followed his movements. The large sword of his, with blue sword key, clearly went for Chongmyung. Kwang! Chongmyung's body trembled. Even though it was blocked, it wasn't blocked accurately to disperse the ki on it. It was an incredibly strong blow. And it didn't end there. Pat! Chongmyung-san kept striking him with one attack after another with all his might. Kwang, 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 kwang. Each strike gave out a tremendous sound that resounded throughout the place. The force in the ki being put into the blade made it look twice as big. What he was doing couldn't be explained clearly. The tenacity of Chongmyung-san and his will to put everything on the line was shocking. Chongmyung's eyes began to turn serious. Right, his wrists were sore, and his body felt like it was being twisted. It was the heaviness that came with the force of the sword he was defending. Huh? In the meantime, Chongmyung-san screamed and struck again, adding even more speed. He stepped forward and hit again and again. Successive attacks kept coming in from him. One more, and then another. He brought out every little amount of ki that was stored in his body and danjon, and was using it to take down his opponent. The dust rose because of his actions, and because of that, Chongmyung-san couldn't see Chongmyung, but it seemed like no one could survive that force. It was then he saw something out of place. A petal. Among the raging storm created by his blade, a single red petal floated in the air. And then the petals increased, and they pushed back the wind that was created by his sword. It reminded him of the scene of the last petals blowing away the summer storm. They kept floating up like a fantasy, and one of them was now sitting on the forehead of Chongmyung-san. The blade of his stopped. Silence. As if the fierce sounds of battle to then were nothing but lies. The air also began to turn still. Chongmyung-san looked at Chongmyung. He was waiting for something. Chongmyung lightly nodded and said, "It was a good match." And the sight of Chongmyung-san blurred. He began to lose strength in his legs, and the sensation he felt in his body seemed wrong. As he felt his body fall to the floor, he smiled. I was acknowledged. He died before his body even hit the floor, but there was a happy smile on his face.